Welcome back to the Movie Wheel Marathon. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Matt.
And we have finished another marathon. It kind of snuck up on me because this was a shorter one.
Woo.
But we are finishing up the Wizard of Oz marathon. We are on Wicked for Good. It came out November 21st of 2025. I believe by the time this goes up, it will have been out for a couple of months. You know, we're definitely... We're past.
It's only 4 days right now, guys.
Yeah,
we're timely, we promise.
Yeah, it just came out for us. But directed by John M. Chu, starring, of course, Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo, Jonathan Bailey, Ethan Slater, Marissa Bowe, Jeff Goldman, Peter Dinklage. I don't think he has any lines in this one, so that's not quite true. Michelle Yeoh, and a bunch of other folks, but those are kind of the ones that are like in it. So yeah, we'll leave it at that. There's other actors, but whatever. But yeah, Wicked for Good. Ho ho.
Oh ho.
Ho 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 ho. So who
should we start with the statement that it is widely acknowledged Act 2 is not as great as Act 1?
Okay, I'm glad you said that because this movie sucks.
Oh, what? I don't think it sucks.
I think it's bad.
What?
I don't even think it's a good movie. I think it's a fun movie.
That's just because you're too fixated on Dorothy.
No, it's not. I got over it. It was disappointing, but I got over it.
Okay.
No, so what I was fixated on for the longest time is I was hardcore trying to figure out what happened to Fiyero. I wanted to know who turned him into the Scarecrow and why. And I came up with so many theories. I was analyzing the trailer, trying to figure out the timeline, trying to figure out what was going to happen, trying to figure out what makes sense. I was using everything I know about trailers, everything I know about Glinda, everything I know about the Scarecrow, and it was the most underwhelming, stupid version it possibly could have been. I was like, that was disappointing by itself. I have several nitpicks. I have several things that I think are genuinely issues because I don't think it matters in this essence how something was done in the play or the book. Now that it's a movie, there are things that they do that are dumb. And I don't think the music's as good. Like that's a genuine not
I actually agree.
Yeah, not an angsty complaint. I walking away from it, as you know, I'm a big old musical hater. Walking away from Wicked Part 1, I was like, ugh, banger after banger after banger. I remembered songs I'd never even heard before. For me, this time, it's only No Good Deed Goes Unpunished. That was pretty good.
That's the best song.
I mean,
and that's actually my favorite song in the musical.
Yeah,
it's
I like how it
starts
with the whole Mana Nakadaka Makanalaka, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, the beginning of that song is a bit of a point of contention between musical fans and how the movie did it.
Okay.
Just because that's one of the tightest transitions in Act 2 of the musical, where Glenda screams Fiyero as she's getting taken away by the guards, which blends into Alpha's scream as Fiyero as she's brought on stage, and she immediately starts the song from her screaming of Fiyero. Okay. So like there's this really, really solid transition. They also messed up the transition between the reprise of I'm Not That Girl, where Glenda's singing it after she's been left shelter, into oh gosh, I've forgotten the name of the song. As Long As You're Mine. There we go. I had to run through the verse for a second. So like it's supposed to go like directly into like the sad chords of like I'm Not That Girl, and then ba 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 ba, and it like goes right into like the big epic kind of sexy music of like As Long As You're Mine, which really highlights like the dynamics that just happened. Like Fiyero just left Glenda at the altar for Elphaba, which is shocking everyone but Fiyero in that situation. So it's a really solid transition. And the movie did what it did in Act 1, which is stretched out those musical moments, and because they wanted to try and get more visual stuff in. And really they should have just kept that audio close knit and together. I think that was one of the strengths of the first movie. I think by the end they were messing with it more than they did at the beginning, but in the very beginning they kept very true to the musical moments of the musical, and I think that's that seems really obvious to say, be true to the music of the musical. But music is often where people make their own little impressions and choices. And I think that's a flaw because I don't think this is like a hot take, but musical music is as important to the storytelling as lines of dialogue and set pieces and costume pieces, which is to say that you can vary it a little bit. But if it doesn't have the right attitude and the right timing and the right pacing, it's wrong for the
I
story.
get that.
And
I get that.
people like it's like messing with settings so much to get it just right that you actually just throw the whole thing off when you mess with the music. So I guess that's why I'm a little upset about those two transitions. But you're right about No Good Deed being the best. It's the
It's
best
good.
song in the whole
It's really good.
musical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one with Elphaba, Glinda, and the wizard is fun. Like them dancing around
Wonderful.
what is his like big lab is pretty cool. Um the ending one with her and Glinda, you know, before she dies is fine. I understand it's supposed to be very heartfelt. I
Rude.
I want to talk what?
For Good brings me to tears every time.
I'll get to it later because
Every
I
time.
have issues with that. And I need maybe your clarification on it because I feel like maybe I've
Okay.
missed something, but I don't know for sure if
Hmm.
I did. But yeah, I've already listened to No Good Deed like on my own several times since seeing the movie because I like it that much.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I would recommend, okay, no shade to Cynthia because she did an amazing job. I would recommend listening to the original Broadway
Okay.
cast
Sure.
recording.
Yeah, I'd be down.
It's, I prefer it just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, I think the directing and the editing might be at fault here more than the actual performance because
Mm.
I'm sure she gave them multiple versions and they picked the version that they wanted.
Mm.
Um, Alphabet should have been a little bit crazier in No Good Deed.
Oh, I
Like,
see.
she's supposed to sound and feel like the Wicked Witch of the West.
Mm.
And this version of it was a little bit too clean, a little bit too perfect. Yeah, she's supposed to be like, kind of breaking down a little bit, which is why the
Uh-huh.
song is so interesting because it's technically difficult and you have to perform a technically difficult song while acting big. And
Mm.
managing all of that parallels and contrasts really nicely with The Wizard and I in the beginning because The Wizard and I is so sweet and happy and positive,
Ah,
but
I
it also
see.
has a
I
lot of
see.
character choices.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the character like she stops singing at certain points to sort of like jump or squeal or like
Mm-hmm.
have a happy little moment. No Good Deed is that, but with anger and sadness and frustration. And I felt like No Good Deed was too polished, too clean. I wanted to see a little bit more of like she is like sobbing and screaming while crying in the play.
Mm-hmm.
She's cackling. She's genuinely kind of having a breakdown.
Okay.
And we're not really getting that from
Okay.
this version of No Good Deed. So you're right about the song being the best song. I wish the performance had given us a little bit
Fair
more
enough.
in the movie.
I want to touch on that a little bit later because that may help one of my issues with this movie, but I don't know for sure because it
Mm-hmm.
may just be an issue with
Mm-hmm.
the story as a whole, like as in
Sure.
Wicked, the story, which we'll talk about
Mm-hmm.
later. I want to quickly just mention some of my positives, and then I want to hear some of your initial points, maybe of the opening or whatever, and because I have a lot to complain about, and I don't want to rant
Mm-hmm.
right away. So, a couple of positives right off the bat. Acting is still kind of killing it. I had seen
Mm-hmm.
some people saying that people seem less interested. I don't really buy that. I think Miss Morrible is still a bit of a bitch, and I think Jeff Goldblum is still doing great. His realization that he is the dad, I thought was actually pretty believable. He gets so teary so quick. I find it very believable.
Mm-hmm.
Fierro being so conflicted works. What's his name as the Tin Man? Just fucking crushing it. Like, ooh,
He's better as the Tin
ooh,
Man than he is Bach, and he was
he
pretty good at
is.
Bach.
He
Yeah.
is. Yeah. Cynthia is still doing great. Ariana is great. I've seen all over the TikTok. I haven't even seen this on TikTok, but I've seen everyone on TikTok talking about how uncomfortable they are with their press tour. That's all good and fine. I don't know what they've been
Yeah.
doing. I understand they're weird. I'm not thinking about that right now. In the
Yeah, it's
movie,
not relevant.
in
Mm-hmm.
the movie, I think they're both doing good still. I have other nitpicks about what the characters are doing, but them
Mm-hmm.
acting, crushing it.
Acting wise,
I still think
yeah,
it's pretty damn good.
just to jump in on that for a second.
Yeah, no.
Ariana, Cynthia, Ethan killing it. I have some critiques about Nessa Rose in general. Not I want to be so careful how I say this because what they did was they changed a significant character motivation because they felt like the character motivation was unfair for those who use wheelchairs. They're like it's a negative, it reflects negatively on them in the original musical is the take. I am going to have to agree because I am not a wheelchair user and I can't like disagree obviously. But desiring to walk normally or without aid feels like something that a character could want. And so I'm a little confused as to how we took that out and didn't give us another good reason for someone to kind of like be angry at Alphabet. I don't know. Basically, it's a situation where they changed something because they felt like it was wrong, but they didn't actually replace it with a better thing, which happens a lot. And I don't want to say that we shouldn't make changes because, people make dumb choices with storytelling all the time that should be updated and changed. It's just that I want us to have a standard for those so that they don't reflect negatively on the story, and I don't feel like Wicked pulled it off. Or Wicked for Good pulled it off. And I also I gotta say, I love Michelle Yeoh. She was not right for this part.
I have heard other people say that as well. I don't know anything about Miss Morrible from the play, so I don't know what she's supposed to be like. But
a vocal powerhouse. It's kind of embarrassing what happens with Madame Morrible in this act. They were able to manage it pretty good in the first one because she doesn't have as much singing to do in the first one, but she becomes a bit of a voice of propaganda in the second act, and she's supposed to be loud and kind of like hard to ignore. Yeah, internally, yeah.
I wouldn't say that. I would not say that at all. Okay.
Yeah. So and there were other options. Now I feel like going into all the casting options gets us a little distracted from what we're trying to do here, so I'm not going to do that. But in part one, I was like, I don't know about this, and then in act two, I'm like, okay, yeah, this wasn't the right move.
I see.
Which is a bit of a disappointing thing because if you don't understand Madame Morrible, I don't think you understand Glenda in the second act. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the acting. I think Bailey, of course, is crushing it. Jonathan Bailey almost never ever makes a wrong acting choice in his life.
Yeah, thus far he's doing great. Yeah, I did see one thing that I thought was really funny. Is that even though he and Cynthia are doing great, their chemistry is very much a gay man kissing a lesbian, and you can tell.
Yeah,
and I didn't clock it,
agree.
But looking back on it, it's like, you know what? Yeah, I think I could see it. Maybe do another take.
If we're talking about that, it's also the movie's hesitation to really lean into that scene because that scene is not PG. Yeah. To be fair, it's a stage musical, and I saw it relatively young, and it wasn't shocking, but it was like they were making out and kind of on each other on stage.
Smooch in this one.
Yeah, in this one, it's almost as cheap as a Disney film, and I'm like, that's not really the vibe.
Yeah, at first I was a little confused. As the music number in her little tree hovel begins, she takes her coat off, and I was like, oh, but then she immediately puts on a sweater. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
I guess it's me with my dirty mind.
Actually, let's pace it by having her leave the room and reclothe herself, and then she comes back in, and all of a sudden it's we're kind of hot and heavy again, and then we're gonna back up and just kind of pause for a second. I'm like, pick a moment to lean into it and don't. This back and forth is weird.
Let's start dancing, but leave space for Toto. Come on now,
Yeah, seriously, it's very strange.
Yeah. So, yeah. Cut me off when I get a little too into it, but unless there's another big positive you'd like to discuss, I would like to start getting into why I think this is a bad movie.
Something that you probably wouldn't be able to appreciate. Glenda is not originally a part of the Wonderful number. Adding her, and I think adding the moment between her and Glenda when Alphaba, when Alphaba, there we go, when Alphaba arrives at Glenda's room,
Mhm.
and they have a little moment, and then Alpha goes to the wizard. That's not in the play either, and I really like that additional scene. I like that they have a little interaction. I love the fact that Glenda's getting ready for her wedding
Mhm.
on her own because she
Mhm.
has no friends
Yeah.
except for the little animal friends
Yeah.
who she has around her, which like I think is as perfectly dual as Glenda herself, which is to say that those animals are in a servant position and they're not talking, which is a problem. But they are safe under her care.
Mhm.
So like there that's a perfect inclusion in my book. Not again, not available in the musical. The musical does a lot less with the animals because animals are hard to do on stage.
Yeah.
But Glenda's getting ready for her wedding on her own because there's nobody who actually likes her there. Alphaba shows up. They have a moment. And then Alphaba goes to complete her mission, and Glenda becomes the real enticing factor in the wonderful number. Because in the play, it's literally just the wizard being like, you know, you could have been in your mission and joined me anyway, and we'll make a difference together, which is kind of appealing, especially if you are just kind of knee-jerk reacting to the fact that the wizard ends up being the bad guy. And you're like, well, if the wizard's willing to change his ways if I work with him, that would be better than me just fighting futilely on my own, right? But then you add Glenda to the mix, and it becomes emotionally charged. I can be with my friend. I can stop fighting. We can work together like I wanted to solve this problem. Like, and it's very different in my eyes when Glenda is there. I don't know if it really changes all that much about the scene, but I do really like it. I think
I think
it's
it
good.
adds them doing their little dance from the nightclub that they went to in the first movie. Together
Yeah.
is very cute. It's like I get that, and I think having her
Mm-hmm.
there, having Glinda there, helps to entice Elphaba to join the wizard. Like I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I do think that's a good inclusion, knowing that's not a part of the play. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Trying to think what else.
on the
I
opening
also
action
like
sequence is
Glenda's
honestly pretty good.
song.
I do like watching that, where she kicks a bunch of the guards'
Yeah, that was
asses while
cool.
they're paving the
That was
road.
new. I liked that
That was
addition.
cool. I
Um,
am fascinated by the fact that they have woolly rhinos in this world. Like those are prehistoric. It's
mm-hmm.
interesting that they're just a feature here. Not a nitpick, really. I just think it's interesting that they chose to
Yeah.
do that, because that's not, as far as I know, if my prehistoric mammal knowledge is correct, that's not a fictional animal that they added. That's a real one that existed. It's just they're dead
That's
now.
cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I was a little confused because they don't really do fictional animals
yeah. So it's like,
unless they're like magical
yeah,
laws.
you
So
look at
I
that and you're
wasn't
like,
sure.
what the hell is that? But like that's a
Yeah,
real prehistoric animal that we used to have here.
that's
So it's
actually really cool.
interesting they chose to do that.
It also speaks to like the interconnectedness of the worlds a little bit,
Indeed.
like suggesting that maybe they were always originally native to Oz. They just made a
Maybe.
crossover
Or
at
it's
some
just the
point, or
time is
vice
different.
versa.
Like all the animals in
Yeah,
Oz and Earth are the same, but for whatever reason they haven't gone extinct in this world. I think it's cool. The
hmm
implications are very
hmm
interesting. I would love to know what writer or director just chose to do that though, because as far as I
hmm
clocked, there are no other prehistoric animals that are hanging out.
yeah.
That's
The
just a
rest of
very
them are
interesting
pretty
choice.
typical.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just a fun
maybe
thing.
there's someone's like favorite creature that managed to convince
Maybe.
someone was a good
Maybe.
idea.
I think it's cool. Um
Um, Yeah, but Alpha's little like song to the animals, to like the No Place Like Home song, that was new for the movie. And like I almost liked it. It fell short of what I wanted it to be once I knew what it was.
mhm.
And the movie could have gone without it,
I
but
yeah,
it's fine.
I don't that I'll hold back because yeah, we'll get to
Yeah.
that. I am genuinely trying to think of other positives real quick. I mean, I'm still loving the
Oh,
monkeys, the way they look, the way they fly, the way the one talks in the end. The monkeys are incredible. Um, if I may hop to the very end just for a second, I
mhm.
think the makeup for Bailey Scarecrow is incredible. I
Oh, you
love the
like it.
way they did the skin texture. I like the nose is still darker,
hmm
like classic, and the way they did his hair to look like hair
hmm
and straw, sublime. It's a crime
Yeah,
that
it
he's
was
not in
honestly
this
pretty
movie
good.
more. And I
hmm
will bitch about that
It's supposed to
later.
be a surprise,
I
but yeah,
don't
I
care,
agree.
honestly, at this point. I kind of thought that they must do that in the play, but I'll get to
Yeah,
why I think that's stupid in a bit. I think that's dumb. But the way it looks
I
is really, really cool.
on that's connected similarly to that moment. The bit between Alphaba and Glenda when Alphaba's like putting her like in this little like closet so she can hide. Um, they performed so well in that moment.
They do.
Just because that's not. I mean, there is a moment where in the musical where Alphaba locks Glenda away so that she's safe. Alphaba gets a message from Chisuri, and she knows that Fiero's alive, and she comes up with a plan to die so that she and Fiero can get away. And she hides Glenda in the closet in the musical, and then through stage magic, they project what happens in shadows on the stage, and you like watch Shadow Dorothy throw shadow water on Shadow Alphaba, and she melts into the floor, right? And so what you're actually watching on stage is Glenda reacting to all of this stuff because she's hidden behind like a tapestry. Yeah, and it's tragic because it's just her not being able to do anything, watching her friend die, essentially. And in the movie, they add lines of dialogue when Alphaba is leaving Glenda, and then they freeze frame with the door between them.
It's pretty good.
It's a really good moment.
It's heavy.
And then they say, I love you. And I love that it's Alphaba that says it first. And that's not, like, those lines very specifically have a very significant absence in the Land of Oz. No one in the Land of Oz throughout all of the Ozian books and films, or maybe not all the films, because some of the films are pretty cheap. They probably said it. It's very common in human. But like the world building of Oz, they just don't have the phrase "I love you."
Really?
They don't. Like it's supposed to be an exploration in how we value other people without using the word love. And if there was ever a moment to break it, I felt like that was perfect. Like it just felt so right in the scene. It was apparently improvised by the actors. Yeah.
I can believe it, knowing them.
Yeah, and it just like it's so sweet and thoughtful, and like they know this is the last thing they're ever going to say to each other. And that's what they choose to say.
Pretty good.
And I love it.
I hate to ruin it later. I really do, knowing that you like it. So I won't start there.
Go for it.
So, okay. Yeah. Where to begin? My first point, I would say. Every single person in this movie is stupid. They just across the board. There's not a single intelligent character except for maybe Fiero, but like just barely. Because Alphaba is trying to fight a fascistic government and also not the entire time. She does multiple things that like there's so many really cool fight the power movies. Andor is a good example, even though it's a show, where it's like, or Rogue One, where I'm gonna do a thing, but then like the wizard of the resistance pops up and is like, if you do that, all you're doing is playing into their hands. You're just gonna make it worse for us. You're helping them. And like we never get like a movie about that character without that guidance, who is just making things worse. That's this movie. That's Alphaba. She has no one guiding her, and it's not even a point of the story, so she's just making things worse. It is not talked about in this, like, I understand at the end of the day, that's not what this movie is, but it's frustrating because that's her whole motivation for like 75% of this movie, is trying to fight the wizard. It's not talked about that when she tries to do a good thing, she makes things worse. She frees all those animals, then ruin Glinda's wedding. And Morrible gets to say, this is the act of the Wicked Witch of the West, and not be lying. Like, you are playing into their hands because you're acting out of anger and vengeance, and I get it, but like it's not addressed that what the goal of what you're trying to do, what the end of the first movie was kind of about, and what the beginning of this movie was kind of about. It's like you're consistently failing. Glinda is just fucking stupid the whole time. That's like half her character, which is why it's weird that at the end of the movie, she turns into the magical equivalent of like John Wick all of a sudden. She's playing everybody. She's taken over. She's now in charge. She's putting Morble in a cage because for some reason, this woman who does have control over magic is not going to fight back at all when this little French fry of a girl threatens her to put her in a cage. And she's just like, oh no. Like, what do you mean, oh no? Oh, well, she's got the monkeys on her side. So, this woman can make tornadoes! But, like, for some reason, Morble's just gonna roll over because Glinda has finally decided she has a backbone. And, like, that's insane to me. That Glinda all of a sudden... Like, Glinda doesn't do anything. I've seen people say that the first movie was about Elphaba. This one's about Glinda. Glinda doesn't do shit in this movie. At all. Anywhere. Ever. Anywhere. She's just, like... We want to be sad that Fiyero leaves her at the altar. And I get that Fiyero has been lying to her about the relationship, but she also just assumed they were going to get married. She sprung that on him in this movie.
Yeah.
As far as
in public.
Yes, if you want to go off of just like, is this a healthy relationship? No. And girl, you're the problem. So like, I don't feel bad for you. And then side characters, but still just as fucking stupid. Bach, dude. You started out strong. I was expecting him to do something horrendous to earn becoming the Tin Man. But, like, at first, he doesn't. He breaks up with Nessa Rose very respectfully, very kindly. He doesn't even do it through text. He just says, I think it's time for me to move on. And this bitch, out of nowhere, is just a terrible person. Immediately goes into full fascistic government. Every munchkin has to have a traveling permit, as well as animals. She sucks shit. I don't give a shit that she gets squished by a house. Like, I have no sympathy for Nessa Rose. She sucks. And
you don't. Like, you're not supposed to.
Okay,
like,
good.
I'm gonna jump in a little bit here because like you're going from thing to thing to thing.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry. Some of these things.
Yes, you're right.
Because I think you're not that you have to like them. I just think you're interpreting intentional things as mistakes and not seeing how they fit into the picture.
I don't think it's mistakes. I think it's all intentional. I think it's bad for every character to be
Okay.
because in the first movie, and I don't. If you have a point, I don't want to cut you off. I just want to clarify. In the first movie, it's like half a coming of age story almost. We're in school. We're figuring out what we want to do and what we want. Like finding out that don't meet your heroes and to take agency. And we have this diverging path of Glinda getting what she wants, and definitely it's going to be bad, and Elphaba not getting what she thought she wanted, and that maybe being a better thing. Then we get to this movie, and everyone is just stupid. No one has a motivation that makes sense for a movie. No one is going anywhere intentionally. Everything just kind of keeps happening. Everyone's just reacting to things that feel like they have to happen for the story to go as it goes. And then in the end, what is essentially the third act, nothing makes sense, I don't think, which I'll clarify on later. But like, I don't think they're a bunch of movie mistakes. I think it's intentional, but it's bad.
Yeah. So the Glenda thing. Yeah, Glenda does not you're not supposed to like her in the second act, essentially. You might feel a little sympathy for her because everything in Act 2 is morally gray. It's kind of what it boils down to. Even Elphaba and her mission, like you were saying, she's very clumsy about it. She doesn't really have a solid drive or focus. She just doesn't like what the wizard is doing and has no resources, but is certain she's going to do something about it. So like the pacing is off, and that gets in the way of a lot of these character arcs. But Glinda starts Act 2 in the musical with thank goodness. So the first thing we see Glinda do in Act 2 is announce that she and Fiyero are engaged to the public without telling Fiyero or even asking him if he would like to get married. And then she very immediately sings, like, he agrees, obviously kind of because they're in public. And then she sings the second half of Thank Goodness, which kind of sets up her eventual change, but indicates that she's not ready for that change yet, where she's like, happiness is what happens when all your dreams come true, right? And like on paper, she's getting everything she ever wanted as a kid. She's popular. She's famous. She's able to do what she wants. She has like the perfect man. She's posed as the second most powerful person in Oz, right? Like it's everything younger Glenda could have ever asked for. Problem is, she's not happy and she doesn't know why. And she spends the entire second act figuring out why she's not happy. And we'll get to that in a second. That leaves her with like nothing to do politically. And since the second act is supposed to be the political moment, it does feel a little odd that Glenda doesn't really do anything politically. Alphaba kind of in the same boat, which is a little bit worse. Alphaba is going through her in the first half of the second act. She is going through I'm just angry and I don't know how to use it sort of thing because she has no resources, which is why I appreciated the film actually threw in that action sequence in the beginning where she's resisting the road.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it doesn't have a lot of long-term plans, but at least we see her doing something, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the musical, you just kind of have to trust that she is doing something.
Okay.
Fingers crossed. And then I like when she shows up and visits the wizard, it makes a little bit more sense because it kind of feels like she doesn't really know what she wants yet. She's just trying to figure out how to stop the animals, and the wizard ended up being an enemy and not an ally, and so now she gets to deal with being a fugitive on top of trying to help the animals. That's what makes her interactions with Nessa so heartbreaking, because when she goes to Nessa has fully bought into the idea that Alphaba is what is wrong with their family. Like it used to be a little bit more nuanced where, of course, I don't blame you for the fact that I'm in the chair, but in the lines of the play, she basically blames Alphaba for the reason she's in the chair, which then means that it is Alphaba's responsibility to make it so she doesn't have to stay in the chair, especially since she can now with the magic. Nessa does not understand that Alphaba does not know how to use the Grimoire like effectively. The Grimoire is wild magic. You can channel it a little bit, but it's kind of do what it wants to do. So in the musical, Alphaba enchants the shoes so that Nessa can walk. And Nessa feels like because she can walk now, she and Bach are going to be perfect. Because the thing that Bach doesn't like about her is that she can't move, right? And now everything in their relationship is going to be great, except she's totally missed the point that Bach doesn't like her at all. Bach likes Glenda, and he's only ever been with Nessa out of like a social awkwardness sort of situation, which is embarrassing for Bach. And so Bach's interactions with Nessa are strained because of the whole Munchkin thing, but like Nessa is supposed to be like full on bad. Like she's become essentially a dictator of Munchkin Land. Like nobody, like the wizard is bad, but everybody in Oz and the Emerald City is like, they love the wizard. It may be tough, but they love the wizard. Nobody in Munchkin Land likes Nessa Rose. And it feels alone, so she keeps tightening the noose situation with the whole like Bach's gonna leave her. She gets her hands on the Grimoire. She reads a spell terribly. His heart starts shrinking. Alpha tries to save his life by making the Tin Man. But Bach then, of course, by that time has been so wronged that he can't see clearly. Also, he doesn't have a heart anymore, so that has to do something functionally. And he becomes like this hateful version of the Tin Man, which is honestly one of the coolest things that Wicked does, but it's also one of the most incongruent with the original Wizard of Oz film.
Yeah, I have a point about that too.
Yeah, you have to accept that what you see in the Wizard of Oz is not the real story if you're going to accept the Wicked version.
I get that. I get that.
The problem is that Wicked doesn't actually reframe any of the moments from the main story.
Yes, exactly. And I have problems with that because I was able to understand and embrace that the Wizard of Oz story is supposedly propaganda. Fine. However, there's still, shall we say, the bones of the Wizard of Oz in this. And the way that Wicked, Part 2, tries to balance telling the story of Wicked for Good and the Wizard of Oz is so sloppy, it almost seems like they didn't even try. And that annoys me, because you can't just ignore that whole other story when you also are dealing with characters who are a part of that story. An issue we kind of touched on last week, which is even worse than this, is I have no idea how much time is passing. Part of that is because everyone is wearing the same goddamn outfit. That ruined one of my theories about when Fiyero was going to become Scarecrow. I told partner, I was like, I can rely on Glinda being in this scene of the trailer and that scene of the trailer because Glinda's not wearing the same outfit twice. Bullshit! She wears the same outfit multiple times. She ruined it for me.
I caught that too.
But what my being less angsty, legitimate things here. Fiyero becoming the Scarecrow after Dorothy arrives is weird. Sorry, my bigger point is I have no idea how much time is passing anywhere because it from when Dorothy arrives to when she leaves, which is another issue, is if you go by Wizard of Oz, a couple of days. If you go off of what's happening between Elphaba and Glinda, it's like maybe 12 hours. But it could also be a fucking week. They don't make it clear.
The Wizard of Oz film isn't super clear either. Like, it's at most 2 days.
Yes,
I think
says
it's
they've been
supposed to
walking
happen in one day.
It's maybe supposed to. She says they've been walking for days and days, and maybe she's exaggerating because she's a child. But they also might have stopped at some point in the woods. Who knows? It could have also been 3 hours, and because she's 10, she exaggerated. Maybe so. But if you go off of that, let's say for a second that the Wizard of Oz timeline is not part of the propaganda. Dorothy leaves Munchkinland, and then they take Fiyero and beat him up, and then he turns into the Scarecrow. Which means by the time he's at any place where that Dorothy would pass, she's gone. It also doesn't make any sense to me that Fiyero, being the Scarecrow, which I have other issues with, but I need to stay on task here, would go with her to the wizard. He knows he's a fraud. He doesn't lose his memory. He doesn't lose his mind, which, honestly, if you wanted to go off of the Tin Man as a precedent, which is really cool, actually making the Tin Man heartless, it would have been more tragic that in trying to save Fiyero, he lost his memory. He lost his mind. He lost his brain and doesn't know Elphaba in the end.
Do you want to know the patch I usually put on this?
Not
because it's the same problem in the musical.
Sure. Okay, fine. Yeah, sure.
I like to think that he essentially had to deal with amnesia, but as you can see through this, like the timeline of, as he had to deal with, like you can watch in The Wizard of Oz, Scarecrow seems to gain intelligence. None of the other characters seem as dynamic as a Scarecrow. Like the Tin Man starts with feelings and ends with feelings, and the Cowardly Lion pretty much just stays cowardly the whole time. We talked about that. But the Scarecrow actually does seem to go on a bit of a arc where he moves from being kind of genuinely kind of brainless into a strategist. And I like to pretend that that's the fact that it's Fiyero going from like, I am a Scarecrow in a field and I don't know how to process my life because I can't remember it, into like over the course of the day or whatever it is. He's like, oh yeah, I have to get back to her. But that's a patch that I put on it. It's not in the story.
I don't hate that patch because I put many a headcanon on the Harry Potters as we talked, so I will give you that. But the fact that they don't touch on that at all is bad storytelling because he goes with Dorothy to the wizard, they leave the wizard to go kill the witch, and he's not a part of the plan. So he's just, if it's just Fiyero, that's bad. And then we get that sequence in the wizard's lab. They, bring me the broomstick. Blah, 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 blah. Like, very cool. I love the head. That's great. Why is Lion still there? Well, it's because Lion is part of the Wizard of Oz. Lion ruins a really cool revolutionary song moment where Elphaba is rallying the animals. He ruins it next to the tunnel that all the animals are taking to leave. Why is he still there? You showed him
That's
advocating.
a problem added by the film. Yeah.
Okay, sure, yeah. The film is it's sloppy. The Lion is advocating that they leave. He wouldn't be there by the time Dorothy gets there. The only one who would maybe be around in a way that makes sense to join Dorothy is Tin Man. And the way that they're illustrating him right now, he would have killed her because he's a fucking madman right now. Like, so it's just I get that this musical and the story is really cool. So far, I've loved it. And I also love Wizard of Oz. And I get that we want to connect to. I really wanted to connect the two. I wanted more Wizard of Oz in this. But what they've done is sloppy. And it doesn't make any sense.
I think the worst mistake is the timeline. A lot of the other like personality stuff, I think you can truly wave away with the idea of the Wizard of Oz being like the propaganda version of the story. Because, I mean, like, think about the way that we've been taught about the founding fathers, right?
Yes.
Perfectly just men who had only the best for all of humankind in mind.
I get that.
And they own slaves, right?
Yes. And terrible things. My issue isn't coming from the movie of The Wizard of Oz anymore. It's coming from the fact that we see in this movie, not the propaganda, our Wizard of Oz gang together at the Wizard, at Elphaba's castle, with the broomstick, walking back. And what we're presented in the movie doesn't make any sense for that to happen at all. Like, at all.
Yeah,
it just doesn't work.
In this movie, we see them all get the order to go kill the Wicked Witch. And that, I think, is a question mark on plot. Like, why would we let Fiyero in? And, like, in the musical, he's like fully a scarecrow. They do like a face paint thing so you can see him act, but he's like supposed to look like a scarecrow. So he would go in disguise in the musical. In the movie, he looks like Fiyero, and he's wearing an army uniform. Yeah. So it doesn't really make sense.
And Morrible is like, there's some straw man here. Like, you saw this dude yesterday. Supposedly, because the timeline is so unclear.
To be fair, it is a little bit in character for Morrible to just not recognize Fiyero because she would consider him unimportant.
Okay, but fine. I guess
I am agreeing with you that particular scene is weakness. I think we can, if we have an issue with the end scene of the Wizard of Oz, where they're all together again with the wizard and the wizard is all giving them gifts, I think we can very handily say maybe it just didn't happen that way. That's because fine. That's a very happy fairy tale ending version of the propaganda story that maybe isn't true to the reality, right?
I will give the whole no gifts thing a full pass. What I won't give a pass to is how the hell Dorothy gets home. Because they've already illustrated that there's really only 2.5 people in this whole world that have any magic. One of them isn't helping her. One of them's in a cage. And the wizard floats away. I will say it's genuinely hilarious that as he floats away and Dorothy's screaming, "Wait for me," and Glinda's like, "It's always something with that girl." Like, that's genuinely hilarious. But in the end, how the hell does she get back? Because the Wizard of Oz is propaganda and no one has magic in this world. Dorothy just stays. I bet you $1.50 Wicked doesn't even address that, does it? Because it's a story about Glinda and Elphaba.
I don't think it does.
Yeah, okay, cool. That's great. Love that for Dorothy. Like,
and they do. I think they do say one line about getting her home. So I think she does, like, in the a brief canon, she goes home. But there's a real good question about how that happens.
Yes.
I think it's supposed to be that the shoes can take her home because they're enchanted with Grimmery magic, but that's just me guessing at things rather than the plot telling it. The plot of Wicked is fundamentally uninterested in Dorothy. It's a little...
too much. It's too much.
Like, I think if we had time to perfect the story, I would incorporate Dorothy a touch more, but I think what they were trying to very clearly do is, like, point out that it's not about Dorothy. In fact, it never really has been about Dorothy, and the fact that she's here is almost like an accident rather than like a part of the real story.
Yes, and I'm sorry for cutting you off. I am, but like in this instance, I have seen people online talking about how Act 2 is significantly shorter. Making a 2-hour movie was the opportunity to expand upon it. They stretched out a lot of stuff.
Disappointing.
They stretched out a lot of stuff that didn't need to be stretched out, and I can respect this whole point about the story isn't about Dorothy. However, you already indicated that the musical number, the one that I liked, No Good Deed Goes Unpunished. She's not acting as crazy. And I think there's a really significant argument to be made here that what brings out the essence of the Wicked Witch of the West and the protective guardianship of Glinda the Good is Dorothy. This is the time to show these characters being themselves, and if you are making a movie and you have the time to add more Dorothy, do it now. That's the only thing Glinda does in The Wizard of Oz, is be there for Dorothy. She doesn't do shit in this movie for Dorothy. And then we see one instance of Elphaba yelling at the kid, and what we know of Elphaba up until that point doesn't make any sense for her to be so pissed at the child. The child didn't do anything.
Yeah, no, that is one of the issues that they develop by not doing crazy no good deed. Let me talk about Dorothy's relationship with Steve real quick. I actually love the reframing of Glenda not caring at all about Dorothy.
Okay, fine.
Because the first time I watched The Wizard of Oz and Glenda smiled through that whole interaction where the Wicked Witch got up and touched Dorothy, saying, "I'm going to kill you." And Glenda's just sitting there, I feel like, hey, isn't this interesting? I didn't like her. I have never liked Glenda the Good. I don't trust her. The person who smiles through that while I am getting threatened, I like, at the very least, put yourself between me and this person if you're not feeling threatened by this person. Dorothy is very clearly feeling threatened by this person. And this, like, and Glenda just doesn't care. Which is actually interesting that I had that reaction to that scene, and that scene in the movie is actually what inspired Wicked the book in the first place. Like, that whole interaction between the fact that Glenda seems so like chill in that scene versus like the Wicked Witch being so aggressive in that scene is what inspired Wicked in the first place. He's like, these two know each other. They know each other. And he wrote the story about them knowing each other. It's cool. But Glenda not caring about Dorothy makes actually so much sense to me. Not in like an aggressive, like, I hate you way, just like in a, what are you even doing in my story kind of way. I love it. It's very in line with like how the shoes accidentally end up on her feet. She accidentally falls into Oz. She accidentally kills one of the evil people in Oz. All that. Elphaba and Dorothy, I think, are trickier because Elphaba is supposed to be a character who fundamentally operates off of empathy. She has felt what it is like to be an outcast, and she doesn't want anybody to feel that way. And Dorothy is legitimately an outsider. She is not of Oz. She's been thrown into a situation that she cannot help. And she is arguably a victim of the wizard and his propaganda. So the fact that Elphaba doesn't help Dorothy has to be explained in some way. And the way the musical does it is that Elphaba goes through a series of losses that circulate around that moment with Dorothy in the shoes. And that kind of explains it. Like, so
I guess.
To be fair, it's paced poorly, but because the moments happen so quickly, you understand emotionally why Elphaba would just not have the patience to deal with this girl. Like, she loses her sister after having a big blowout fight with her sister where her sister calls her a wicked witch. She loses the fight to her sister. She loses her sister, her relationship with her sister. Her sister becomes a dictator, everything that Elphaba's against. And then her sister gets crushed by a house in a storm created by Madame Morrible. I don't know if Elphaba actually gets there, but that's a part of the awfulness in my book. And
so she does because she questioned the cyclone and its existence.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So like, kind of because of me, my sister, who I just had a big fight with and maybe needed to reconcile with, died. And then also, like, beyond any shadow of any conception I ever had, the guy I like picked me over Glenda the Good. And we had a moment together. And then he got beat to death.
Well, yeah, I take issue with that too, actually, which I imagine shocks no one.
Well, I mean, it's zealots, but and give me a second. I'm just going to
I know. I'm sorry. I don't want to. Go on.
And so, like, if you go straight from I've lost my sister, because of my own actions, I've lost my boyfriend, because of my own actions, and now everything, like, the wizard sent this child with the only remains of, like, my sister and my mother on her feet to my house to kill me. I don't have the time to deal with her. I have other things going on. It lines up quite a bit more in the movie, especially because they tone down no good deed. It's a lot harder to understand why Elphaba is just screaming at Dorothy. It doesn't really track.
Yeah. Like, I don't care about your aunt, whatever her name is. Just get those shoes off your feet. Like, okay.
Yeah.
I can appreciate more of that analysis on where Elphaba's coming from. I can respect the fact that you like that Glinda doesn't care because it's consistent. I think it's a missed opportunity to show this character doing something worthwhile, because her doing something worthwhile in the end comes out of nowhere. And the fact that she cries over the loss of Nessa Rose, she feels guilty about that. I think it'd be interesting to see her feel guilty about bringing this innocent child into this and actually wanting to protect her. And this is actually the beginning of Glinda the Good, where she tries to help her. Like, but she doesn't.
Fair.
She doesn't do anything.
Fair.
I just think it's a missed opportunity, because I look, I'm in the hype, man. Okay, I was excited for this movie. I rewatched Wicked for this, and I'm listening to the music. I'm into this. I want to give a shit about Glinda. I don't. There's nothing in these two movies that makes me give a crap about this character, because she's not good.
Yeah,
she's not interesting. Okay. I understand that she's kind of interesting, but not nearly as interesting as all the other characters in this magical world. And this character who is wanting to fight against injustice. All of the last movie, part of this movie, and then you got Glinda. I don't care about Glinda. But there's this opportunity to show her going through something, and we don't. But, whatever. That's neither here nor there anymore. The whole Fiyero thing is stupid. I was so intrigued to see how he becomes the Scarecrow. I think it's the worst possible option, because he picks Elphaba, right? And a great relationship upset. And they leave the Emerald City. How do they do that? Probably, I would wager a guess, since they leave Emerald City and get to the tree hovel at the same time, Magical Witch Lady flew with him. Doesn't seem to be that big of a deal. Then we're on the Yellow Brick Road in Munchkinland, and we have the upper hand. That is Green Lady and Scarecrow. We have the upper hand. Everything is going the way we want it to. We have the broom, we have the gun, we have the monkeys, and we can leave. However, we just don't, it seems.
Yeah.
Witch Lady leaves, and we leave Fiyero. For what reason? Not explained, because he has to turn into the Scarecrow. Well, dare I say, take a weekend and rewrite that bit of the story so it makes a damn bit of sense, because it doesn't make any sense. Because, and here's my other thing, and I understand that, again, this has
a movie. In my recollection, this is a movie mistake.
Okay, fine. Then the movie is bad. If the play does it better, then awesome. That's good.
It's not a lot better, but it is a little better.
Okay. They needed to write something into this movie as to why the monkeys couldn't carry him, or she couldn't carry him when they had the upper hand.
Well, the monkeys aren't supposed to be there.
Okay, well that helps, but also doesn't matter, because the monkeys weren't there when they left the first time. So, she can carry him.
As it's blocked in my recollection, the only reason Elphaba can leave is because all of the guards have their guns pointed at Fiyero when Fiyero has his gun pointed at Glinda. And if Fiyero and Elphaba were to stand in the same space, they would just shoot them both. And so basically Fiyero takes the fall for Elphaba. Elphaba takes off is kind of the thing.
Okay, well, someone who coordinates battles or prisoner transfers needed to be a coordinator on this, because from where we stand in the movie, it's bad. And then
it is.
I don't get on me for a second, okay? Because I understand the magic in this world is a little bit weird. However, I don't love the fact that Elphaba. I don't like how he turns into the Scarecrow. I'll just put it that way. It's she panics and wants to save him. I get that. That's all good and fine. I understand. The words she says to help keep him alive can be interpreted so many ways that it does not equate to Scarecrow necessarily. I understand that it can be interpreted that way, but she says, let his bones not break, not no bones at all. Let him not die. Scarecrow can die. He has a mortal weakness in all of the Wizard of Oz. Don't give me that shit that it's propaganda. He can still burn in this world too. So I kept thinking going into this movie that something was going to happen where he knew something, and his position as the prince put him in a situation where they needed to remove his memory. And because this magic is so fucking awful,
Yeah, thought too hard about it.
It turned him into a brainless sack of hay. But no, it turns him into an immortal god. But the magic interprets that as a scarecrow. And the fact that she even says it in the song, I don't know what I'm saying, is like, okay, girl, well then maybe watch it, because you've done a spell out of this book 3 times, and every single time it's been dog awful. Maybe don't do that to him. It also, it implies to us, the viewer, that you can put magic on people that are miles and miles away, and you've had this for like 8 months. You could have done something to the wizard all this time.
The wizard,
like, what are you doing? It's like,
that part has always bothered me. I'll admit that.
And like, I think knowing that the play does his situation, him not being able to escape, better, that's good to know. However, I think it sounds like there really wasn't that clever of an idea as to why Fiero had to turn into the Scarecrow. And it being a twist in the end seems a little weird, because his absence is so noticeable throughout the scenes with the gang. Because Tin Man's got a fucking music number, and Lion keeps popping up, and it's just noticeable that Scarecrow isn't here. So it's kind of
That's
weird.
one of those things where, by stretching out the movie, they didn't really think it all the way through, because in the musical you move from like the creation of the Scarecrow, which you don't know is the creation of the Scarecrow, by the way, almost directly into March of the Witch Hunters, which features only the Tin Man, actually, because the Lion is present kind of, but he has no lines of dialogue. The Tin Man speaks for him. And so you don't see the Scarecrow yet, and it's a little bit of like the, where is he? But the fact that Tin Man is the only one that speaks kind of makes up for it, because like, it's not even like 2 of them are fully represented. It's like 1 of them is represented, and like the half of another one, if you're being honest. So the absence of the Scarecrow is felt less in the musical because of how quickly the story travels. In the movie, especially because they introduced the Cowardly Lion earlier, the absence of the Scarecrow feels conspicuous and weird in March of the Witch Hunters. So I don't disagree with you. It's just, again, it's one of those changes they made, and they didn't bother to patch up the consequences of the change. This is why adapting something is so difficult, especially if you're adjusting the format of the thing. And like, Wicked Part 2 has a lot of flaws. Like, not Part 2 necessarily, Act 2, as in like in the stage musical. But what it has going for it is the push of energy from Act 1 through Act 2. And because it's moving quickly, you do have to kind of like there are moments where you as an audience member go like, wait, where are we? Okay, I kind of know where we are again. I'm back on track. But because you have all of that history and the momentum and the relationship that's been built up in Act 1 moving through Act 2 still, you don't feel super confused. You don't question why Dorothy is only there for a little bit, because it's not about Dorothy. It's about these 2 characters you've been following through all of Act 1 anyway. I think there's just a lot of like little consequences, and instead of using their extra time to patch things that would need to be fixed based off the changes that they made, they added 2 new songs that honestly don't fit super well with the vibe of what they're doing. Like, I get that they use the right chords and whatnot for Girl in a Bubble and No Place Like Home. It's just, that time could have been used better. It really could have. Like, putting Girl in a Bubble right before For Good was kind of ridiculous, actually. Because Girl in a Bubble, as a song written for Glenda, I am very intrigued by. But putting it near the climax of the film doesn't work at all. Even though it's a song about Glenda making her choice, Glenda is making her choice slowly and subtly across the act. At first, she kind of leans into the propaganda a bit, because Alpha's not giving her what she wants. Alpha says no to the wizard. She's taking Fiero. She's getting hurt by this war, and so she's choosing her side. But that seems to fall through for her. The moment she starts paying attention, she's like, this is kind of awful. So that's what creates the change for her to flip and be like, I cannot actually stand on the side that is going to actively kill Alphaba. I can't do it. And that's why she goes to the castle and they sing for good, where it's like, turns out I was always going to pick you anyway. And that's kind of what makes that moment feel special. But instead, because the for good is like the moment where Glenda first expresses on stage that actually I am going to choose your side instead of the other side.
Mm-hmm.
In the movie, it's now Girl in a Bubble, where she sings to herself in the mirror about
Mm-hmm.
how she's not happy with her life and now she's going to make a change. Instead of like immediately getting on a horse and riding and making that change, she takes a whole moment while she knows an army is on the way to kill her friend to sing a song, and then she goes and saves her friend. Like, I get that we're working with a story that's not super solid on its time structure, and like we have to kind of accept that in a lot of ways. Girl in a Bubble was poorly placed. It was truly poorly placed, and I have issue with it because of that.
Yeah. I just think the whole I don't okay, this we're at our time. We're gonna have to go over a little bit because I need clarification if you know more, either about the play or something I missed. I don't think the ending makes any sense. I think Elphaba's motivation keeps changing in ways that like don't seem justified, even with the death of her sister. And her having such conviction in helping the animals and to fight the wizard and learning more about the wizard doing poor things and then Morrible killing her sister and then just deciding to quit doesn't make any sense to me. It just doesn't work. And then the the real end, ignoring the fact that Glinda just becomes a powerhouse for seemingly no reason at all. The fact that not Glinda. Elphaba's whole thing was that the wizard lies, but then she helps build this new society out of lies. Seems like we've learned nothing. We've gained nothing. We've gone nowhere. We took an idea from the Wizard of Oz, made a very interesting, different story, to then end worse than the Wizard of Oz, and do nothing with the Wizard of Oz connections, but are also feeling the need to be completely handicapped by the story of the Wizard of Oz. We still have to be melted. We still have to die. But we don't. If Glinda is now on Elphaba's side, and we're not doing the Wizard of Oz because the Wizard of Oz is propaganda, and Dorothy maybe doesn't get home, then why isn't the ending Elphaba and Glinda, with everything they could do, pause for dramatic effect, together, taking over and making Oz the way they always wanted it? You know, like what am I missing? Because her conviction with Dorothy and her anger, and then Glinda being like, hey, this dude made of tin, a scarecrow you may or may not know about, and a lion that's probably going to do shit to you since you have an army of flying simians and the Grimrear, they're coming to kill you, which you already know about because you brought Dorothy here on purpose, so you're already prepared for it. Why do you then decide that the best thing to do is throw in the towel?
So the first thing I want to say is that theater story format, sorry, I'm not trying to like be all nerdy or like elitist here. It's just that theater stories have a tendency to be less definitive in their morals and endings
Okay.
than film endings do.
Okay.
Like one of my thoughts as you were speaking, and particularly on the end and how the motivations are changing and whatnot, was I guess you don't watch a lot of theater, huh? And like
No.
that's not, and like I'm not trying to be, again, not trying to be like snobby about it. It's just that theater has a different format and explores different things than film does. They're not a one-to-one in more ways than just how you accomplish watching the story. Theater, because of its repetitive format, the actors are doing the same thing again and again and again, and because of its like how it's performance art. Like you only have access to it when everybody can get together and perform it and watch it. Um, it tends to take on really complex ideas, and it doesn't tend to give you simple moral answers. We like a solid film that ends with a clear message and a kiss in the sunset, right? Like that's what Hollywood likes. And so they tell that story or some variation of that story over and over and over and over and over again. Theater tells that story in the first act, and then you have to live the consequences of that story in the second act. And the story is in the second act is often much more complex, much harder to think through. And essentially what you have to do with Wicked and Glinda and Alphaba is realize that in act 2 they don't get their way the entire time, and they have to change who they are in order to find a happy ending. Alphaba cannot affect change. Like you noticed, every time she tried to do something, she made the situation worse. And you could argue why that is, or maybe trying to find a solution in her like cause for, justice or dealing with oppression. But as she is, as the woman who is known as the Wicked Witch of the West, the only person she possibly had a chance of influencing beyond Fiyero, who is now essentially not helpful, was Glinda. And Glinda, up into the very end of the story, is not going to help her. In fact, grows more combative with her than she was previously. So Alphaba, in no good deed, breaks down and doesn't know what she's supposed to do. She's like, I can't be good because every time I try to be good, something bad happens, and I don't want to be evil. So when Fiyero shows up and says, hey, what's up? I am alive. Let's get out of here. She says, yeah, actually, I can be happy if I leave.
Can I pause? I'm not trying to argue. Is the monkey giving her part of his uniform confirming to her that he's alive? Because the way the movie
I think he's left a message.
Okay,
on the
well,
back of that.
I don't think the movie illustrated that very well, because that she tells Glinda that we'll never see his face again. And I don't know if that's the movie being cheeky because his face has changed, or she knows, quote unquote, knows that he's dead. Because see, if there's a message,
she's being cheeky.
Okay, if she's being cheeky and he left her a message, that messes with the amnesia thing, because he now knows that Elphaba is the Wicked Witch and he doesn't want to hurt her, and he's on his way with the others to go kill her.
The suggestion is that he figured, well, if we're applying the patch, right, with the amnesia patch,
right.
He figures out who he is before they make the plan to attack the castle. Sends a message with one of the monkeys because he's now allies with them, right? He remembers them.
Yeah.
And his plan is, I know how we can end this conflict, how we can keep you safe. We can keep you safe by faking your death. And why does Dorothy throw the water? Because the scarecrow stands in front of the witch while on fire. Like, this is like they're using the blocking of the original film as a part of the plan that Fiyero sets in place with his note to Alphaba in that scene.
Okay, I'll take that. I think that's a little bit better, but I don't think they're very clear about that note. Let me just say. Maybe I need to rewatch that.
You have to think about it.
Okay.
It takes a rewatch. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I was gonna. Unless you have more to say, which I'm sure you do, because we have lots to say about this.
Sorry.
I wanted to say real quick. The way that she uses that trapdoor thing, that's all good and fine. But when he comes back to the castle and opens it, there's no way you snuck into that, girl. That thing is huge.
Yeah.
There's no little door. Anyway, sorry. Go on.
Yeah, no, that's one of the things, especially since they almost always open out and up. And I think it's supposed to parallel the cellar, Well, but they always open out and up.
But if it
work
for her purposes.
Down, that would work. Yeah.
Anyway, go on.
Anyway, Glenda's story in Act 2 is she's like, I got everything I wanted, but I'm not happy and I can't figure out why. Alphaba starts taking the things that she wants.
Mm-hmm.
And Glenda gets more and more upset, so she buys into the propaganda a bit more. She's like, let me go ahead and just do this. And while she's doing that, while Glenda is admittedly selfishly dealing with herself and her own issues, she is also learning state secrets.
Mm.
No one else knows that Madame Morrible called that twister. No one else knows that the wizard has no magic. No one else knows that the wizard drinks out of a little green bottle that is
Mm-hmm.
connected to the Wicked Witch's parentage.
Mm-hmm.
She is, they have assumed she is not a threat, I think fairly. And so they have let her in on all the secrets. And they
Mm-hmm.
don't care what she knows because what is Glenda going to do about it anyway? She has no power.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Glenda's not motivated to do anything about it. Glenda coming from a position of power is so important to the story. Glenda realizes that there's something wrong going on, but what she's been told when something is wrong is you just need to pretend like it's okay. And so that's what she's doing for a lot of the film. And then she starts taking action and she doesn't like the results of the action. She suggests that they should pretend or maybe literally threaten Nessa, but not actually do any harm to Nessa. And the evil people she's around take that the next step further and straight up kill Nessa, who was Glenda's friend. And now Glenda has personal stakes for maybe the, like, other than just Alphaba. She's seeing the direct consequences of the wizard's actions in a way that hurt the people she cares about. Is it a little shallow that it took that much for her to figure it out? Yeah. Is it realistic? Yeah. So Glenda is dealing with that character arc, and it's not until she has her for good moment with we're out with Alpha, sorry, not until they have that for good moment with Alphaba, where she decides the death of Alphaba is where she draws the line. Alphaba can no longer fight for the injustice. She very explicitly actually tells Glenda, it's up to you now. I can't do anything. I've been trying to do something about this for forever. Nothing good has come of it. I'm not going to be able to continue this thing. She's suggesting death to Glenda, but is actually talking about her escape. Either way, she's not going to be able to help the people of Oz anymore. And so she tells Glenda the only way the people of Oz can be helped is if you decide to do something. And I'm not sticking around to see how it goes. You have to decide how that works. And I think the only reason Glenda stays motivated is because it cost Alpha's life. I think that's why Alpha can't tell Glenda that she got away. Not because it would risk the secrecy of the plan, but because Glenda has to think that Alpha died in order for her to become the good witch that everybody thought she was. Which then carries us back to the opening song, um, the good news, the witch is dead. And they kind of butcher this in the movie, in my opinion. It's pretty clear in the musical that Glenda verbally told this entire story to the Munchkinlanders that she was talking to at the beginning
Didn't do that
of
in the movie.
play.
I was looking for that because
They
I
didn't
remember
do
you
that
said
in the
that
movie.
last week.
They
That's not a
needed
thing.
to do that. They
There's
needed
no
to do that because
there's no elaboration on Elphaba. It's
yeah.
There's no explanation. She's just the Wicked Witch, and not even Glinda knows she's dead. So like, I'm loving
Glenda's first rebellious act is telling the truth about
Yeah.
her life with Alphaba,
Which she
and they
didn't
just
even
don't
do.
do that in the film, and I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
I'm loving this elaboration. It's helping with a handful of things. Instead of
Mhm.
thinking it's dog shit, I think it's more fish spit.
Clumsy.
Yeah. And we're past our time. What I'll kind of end on, what my final thoughts would be, and I still have. There's a handful of other things I could complain about. I've only seen this one once. As we've said before, I think you have to see movies multiple times to form an opinion. It could change after I watch it with no expectations instead of the big ones. I was expecting Anakin and Obi-Wan kind of stuff between Glinda and Elphaba, and we're not even close.
Their one fight scene is played for laughs. Yeah,
so
it's
like,
not.
I had so many theories about the Scarecrow. It wasn't even funny. So I can't give it a whale right now. I just can't. I was so disappointed, and I think I understand your point before about this is structured more like theater. I don't think that's a fair defense in this instance. It's a movie now, and you had the time to stretch things out and change things. If you wanted, or say in this instance, you had to elaborate.
I'm gonna push back. I'm gonna push back a little bit.
They had the time to elaborate and expand on motivations, and they didn't use it. That's not
They
good
had the time to do
decision-making.
that, and I agree that they didn't fix that very well. I would push back on the idea that they should change how the story ends. Like, there are people out there who advocate that the story should have ended differently, and it would be Hollywood to end the story in a different way. There are a couple different more Hollywood-style endings that you could pick. I love that they stuck to the story's original end, because I think that tragic end, as complex as it is kind of what sets off the whole thing. Like, I think that's what makes it work.
I think the tragic end is fine, but I think the movie needs to earn it more, and I don't think it does. I think if we didn't have the play and the book, this would not be getting as much positive reactions as it's getting, because by itself, it's not as good. And since you had this opportunity and you wasted it,
because coloring in what I know from the musical. Like, I am genuinely baffled at their decision to not have Glenda be telling that story to the Munchkins. I'm so confused about that.
And I think the fact that they added that No Place Like Home song, that time maybe could have been spent better building up a believable motivation for Elphaba to quit and for Glenda to start caring, because you have added a lot of heartful analysis to it, but it's all coming from what you know of the play, which I don't blame you, but like, the movie's not doing that. And looking at this as a movie, not as Wicked lore, I'm not digging this. It's ugh. And then the fact that at the end the Grimrear all of a sudden seems to give a shit about Glinda.
That's new to the movie, actually. I don't know how I feel about it. I go back and forth, actually.
I don't like the magic creatures, because like Glinda finally being someone who thinks and realizing that the reason Glinda has power is because she's a child of two worlds. Even though you could say, well, she made that jump, that is such a cool explanation as to why she would have this power. But apparently, no. The Grimrear just picks.
It's more complex than that. The Grimmery is given some level of consciousness. Madame Morrible is able to read out of it. Not well, and not really effectively, but she has learned from it. And that's something she says in the first film and in the first act.
Fine.
But the wizard has zero magical ability because he's just human from Kansas. And Glenda has no magical ability innate to her, but if the Grimmery were to be like influenced to think positively of her, she could use it, just not as effectively as Elphaba could have.
Fine.
And so that's why I'm torn about it, because I kind of love the fact
it's within
that
the
Glenda
rules.
just uses, well, like, here's the thing, within the rules of Glenda's character, she has no power but popularity. And so for her to use her position of popularity, and that's her only weapon to change the world of Oz, kind of love it, turns it on its head, right? I also love the idea of magic being a natural beast of the land of Oz, and now that Glenda has aligned herself with the natural people of Oz, it also opens up to her. So, like, I think it's an artistic choice that I feel 50-50 on. Totally
I don't hate
50-50.
that. I don't hate that. What I don't like there is, like, if the magic does have a mind of its own, then Nesta Rose shouldn't be able to just flip a page, spit some shit, and shrink some dude's heart.
Fair.
Okay? It's a little inconsistent.
I think it has more to do with like an invitation than control. Like, the book can invite Glenda to read it. But can't stop someone from opening the pages and trying.
I will give this movie more viewings to try to digest it a little bit more. But as it stands, 'tis not to wail. And this marathon did not go the way I thought it was going to go. This was a 2 for 2. It's Wizard of Oz and Wicked kick ass. Oz is very powerful. It's definitely worse by far, But this was not what I hoped.
It's kind of a zigzag.
It is.
I still rank this one over, I think, and this might be sacrilegious, sorry everybody. I still rank this one over the original film of The Wizard of Oz. I don't.
What?
It's very charming. I don't really like the original Wizard of Oz. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's a whale.
Yeah.
But it's not my favorite film.
That one has the Scarecrow in it. This one doesn't. So for me, Wizard of Oz is better.
That's true. I do love the original Scarecrow. I don't know. This to me only works because it is attached to the first one. So if I were to look at it alone, maybe I wouldn't give it a whale, but I don't feel like that's totally fair because it is so inherently attached to the first one. Like that'd be like saying I read the back half of a book and I didn't like it,
I get that.
Like that.
And I've seen people make that point online that you can't think of this as a sequel because it's Act 2. And it's like, okay, I see where you're coming from, and I can respect that I'm not a part of the theater kid world. I get that. But there's a year between these two, and this is still a 2 hour and 18-minute movie. This is no longer just Act 2.
They had time to make it a better movie.
You had
and they didn't
an opportunity,
really, so.
and you didn't take it.
Yeah.
And for me,
yeah.
I'm not digging it. But that's where we're at.
It's a good attempt, in my opinion, to try and flesh things out. Unfortunately, it's like you did a lot of things right, but everything turned out wrong. Like the idea to add a solo song for both of Elphaba and Glenda could be the bit we're missing about how they grow into their character arcs later in the act. Problem is, neither of them are placed correctly or written in a way that really made sense for the rest of the film. Like, well, to be fair, I think they were trying to play with the idea that Elphaba would leave one day because she's telling everybody there's no place like home, but the song ends kind of differently, right? And Glenda's song is about how she's changing at the very end. But I feel like it didn't work. It didn't do what it was supposed to do. So
would you say it's a whale?
I'm just talking now.
You're fine. If you look at it as a movie objectively, would you say it's a whale? And I'm not going to shame you if you do. I'm genuinely curious. Like if you look at it just as a movie.
When I look at it as connected to the first one, I would watch these two back to back and have a good time.
Sure.
So I'm gonna call it a whale. I think.
Okay. Like a C+ whale or like a A- whale.
Like if it were alone, it wouldn't be a whale. But again, I don't think you can do that hypothetically with this one because it doesn't make sense on its own. It would never make sense on its own.
Fair enough. All right. Cool beans. On to the next. I'm excited for this next marathon. It's another little one. But yeah, we are done for now. Bye.
Bye.